Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about technology. It's about keeping our children safe using their mobile phones. Now, by way of background, I have got two children and my eldest son has a mobile phone. He's 12, nearly 13, and he got his phone last summer. So he'd finished year 6 and he was due to start secondary school in September. And that's quite normal really for children in the UK to receive a phone at that point. He was starting to go out more with his friends. We wanted to know where he was and keep in touch with him. And he would be going to school and just be at secondary school, a different school that was a little bit further away from where we live. So we wanted to be able to have that contact with him for picking up, things like that. So having a mobile phone was necessary for safety, and it was necessary that we felt it was the right time for him to have a mobile phone and look after it properly and have an understanding of how to use it. They'd already done quite a lot of stuff in school around online safety, but we wanted him to be able to talk about it and perhaps to apply it and take it from there. So these are my tips. These tips are in addition to the content and privacy restrictions that you can set on an iPhone. So I go into my phone on family sharing and I can restrict the kind of content that I would like my child to see. Tip 1 is that there should be no expectation of privacy. I think I might get some comments about this, but when we set up my son's phone, we set it up, he's got an Apple iPhone, and we set it up with a passcode, and we said if you change your passcode then we will take your phone away. That's how serious we felt about it. So we wanted to be able to have access to his phone when we needed to. Now, when it was new to him and he was just starting to use his phone, I did used to check his phone quite a lot. He's had it for over a year now. I think the novelty has worn off a little bit and I don't check his phone as much as I used to. But I think it's a good thing to have in place because you can show, look, I trust you now. I don't need to be looking at it every 5 minutes, but there is a chance that I could be looking at it. It has been important and was really important in the beginning when he first started sending iMessages or text messages, because what I found from some of the messages was that he was receiving stuff from other kids that was alarming. So he was getting swearing and verging on, some horrible wording, and I wanted to be able to have a conversation with him about it. The other thing was I wanted to be able to tweak his tone at times. So we had conversations then about what his message might have sounded like. I mean, children don't learn how to send text messages, what the kind of things that should go in them. But I think it's really important that you do have that conversation because children are learning. They will soon be adults. They need to learn how to represent themselves and have the correct tone in what they're saying. So we felt that it was a way of tweaking that, his tone, by having access to his phone. But also I wanted access to make sure that there wasn't anything that he was looking at that I wasn't happy with, that was age appropriate for him. The other controls that I'm going to be speaking about have obviously helped with that. But I wanted to be able to just go in and check. And actually there was a situation with one app where I wasn't happy with the content that he was able to look at, and then we were able to delete that from his phone. Tip 2 is the Apple family sharing. So Ollie is on my Apple ID. That means that if he wants to download an app, he has to ask my permission. I think that's really important because there are times when he's wanted apps that have been like a 16 plus or an 18 plus, and I've said no, you're not having it. Or I felt that the app itself was going to take too much storage space, and I've said you're not having that because it might mean that you haven't got storage for other things. So I can say no to that. So he has to ask my permission. He can't just download things without me agreeing to it. Secondly, I can obviously put a cap on spending so he can't make any in-app purchases, because I think it's possible that could happen quite easily, that children could inadvertently buy something or be making telephone calls that are suddenly more expensive and or not within the data plan, and so we've set that up so that he cannot has no spending cap and cannot make in-app purchases, so that we can control that. Tip 3, through the Apple Family Sharing, we can set screen time limits. So I think I mentioned it in a video that I made about discipline. So we set screen time for 7 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. So he can't have any access to his apps outside of that time. In addition to that, I set up screen time so that he has 2 hours of screen time per day during that period. So he only has his phone for a short time, because when he's at school he doesn't have his phone between 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So he shouldn't need it. He shouldn't need any more than 2 hours. That should be plenty. However, if he did need more screen time, if he was perhaps going out for the evening or going for a sleepover or something like that, then he can just go into his Apple iCloud and he can request additional screen time, and I can approve it for 15 minutes, an hour, or the rest of the day. So he does occasionally ask for more screen time if he's perhaps waiting at school for me or something, and I can approve it. I don't have to, and I can't. He has to ask specific approvals for the apps that he wants to look at. So I wouldn't just give him access to everything. It might be that he just wants to play on a game for 15 minutes, and I can agree to that. With those screen time limits, I can also use that for discipline. So I can restrict the time, the period of time with which he can have access to his phone. But also I have in the past reduced these 2 hours to just 1 hour per day when we've had some discipline problems. Or I can take it back to nothing in the holidays. If he doesn't need access to his phone, I can just take it away. So there is that option that obviously if you show me good behaviour, then I could increase your screen time. So I think it's quite a good tool for discipline. Tip 4 is that I use Find My iPhone. So you probably know this already, but you can link other people's or family iPhones with yours, and that's really good with kids because number one, you can see where they are if you need to. If they're out and about, you can check on Find My iPhone. But secondly, if they lose their phone, then it is a good way of being able to find it. Sometimes they've left it at somebody else's house or left it in their rucksack on the playing field. You can see on Find My iPhone where their phone is, so that's really useful. Tip 5 is that we don't allow screens upstairs. This might be quite contentious with some of you, but what we say is that your phone at the end of the day goes to a central charging point in the kitchen. So by 8 o'clock for my son, his phone should be on there and charging ready for the next day. We don't have technology upstairs. That also applies to us. So we don't take our phones upstairs. We don't we're not there on the internet in the night time upstairs. We want them to see that we're not in the habit of doing that, and neither should they be. Their bedrooms are for reading, doing the homework and going to sleep. It's not for playing on phones or sending messages at night. So that's the rules, and actually that's what they are used to, and I absolutely recommend that keeping technology downstairs and then having phones on to charge in the evening is a really good habit to get into for adults and children. Tip 6 is communication and education. So before my son got his phone and just when he got it, we were talking to him all the time about how he was going to use his phone, communicating, keeping those lines open with him to talk to him about if he was concerned about anything that he'd received or anything that he'd seen, that we were happy to talk to him about it and keep those communication lines open. We also had educate ourselves. So my husband is a primary school teacher and he will read a lot about technology and find out what the children are playing at that point, because technology moves on apace. We also read information about this digital age so that we are kept up to date with new developments. I just think that's really important to do. But also we talk to our children about technology. We talk to them about their expectations. We talk to them about what is appropriate and not inappropriate to send to other people, and that includes images. They do learn about it at school, but we reinforce that a lot at home. And we talk about how what you put out there, how it could be perceived by others, how actually you're representing yourself, you're representing your family, and that you're representing your school as well if you're talking to your school friends. So we educate ourselves, but we also educate our children and keep the communication lines open about technology all of the time, in the hope that we are keeping them safe, or as safe as we can be. But also just letting them have that little bit of independence as well. But we just know that, you know, as parents, it's really vital that we keep an eye. Some parents don't, but we feel strongly that as parents that we should be keeping an eye and helping them and guiding them in what is can be quite a scary world of technology, with so much change happening all of the time. Thank you for watching today. I hope some of these tips might have helped you, particularly if you were just thinking about getting a phone for your child. I hope these help. If you've got other comments or tips for others, please could you leave them in the comments box below? That would be great. If you're not a subscriber, then I would love to have you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!